what I now believe is that there is only one place in the Bible that tells us how to be born again. So it's in the book of John, and that's the parable of vine and branches. But because he hid it with a parable, not many people know the true meaning of that parable. So I'm going to tell you briefly what that parable means and tell you the reason why he hid the true meaning of that parable. So the true meaning of that parable is that if somebody is in Jesus and Jesus is in him, then he can bear many fruits, and that kind of branches will not be thrown into the fire. So the fruits are the actions that come out of people, and the fire is the lake of fire. So if somebody is in Jesus, then he can bear many fruits. That means he will bear good works. That means he will live a holy life. Then he will not be thrown into the lake of fire. So that means he will be saved. So only if you achieve holiness, then you can be saved. So one of the characteristics of being born again is to be holy. So in the book of 1 John, it says, no one who is born of God will sin. So if somebody is born again, he cannot go on sinning all the time. That's one of the characteristics of being born again. And it says, unless you remain in Jesus, then you can bear the fruit. That means you can achieve holiness. So being born again is the only way to achieve holiness and be saved. So what is being in Jesus? That means if somebody is in Jesus, then Jesus has to be in him, because Jesus is the Lord. If he is to be in somebody, then he cannot be in the outskirts of that being. So he has to sit in the center. That means he will become the Lord of his life. He will deny himself to obey and follow Jesus and do whatever he wants him to do, or go wherever he wants him to go, even if it means death. So only if you do that, then he becomes born again. And also because he is Lord, he has his laws, and you have to decide to keep his laws. So you have to decide to live according to his words. So that's how you become born again. But because Jesus hid this how to be born again with a parable, not many know the true meaning of this parable. So they believe that you just have to believe Jesus to be saved. Denying yourself to follow Jesus is not a requirement of being saved. That's what they believe. Why? Because he hid the true meaning of this parable. So that's the true meaning. Then why did he hide it with a parable? I believe one of the reasons is that I explained about this in this channel before, but what I believe is this life on earth is a test. It's a test to choose all the righteous people from all the people on the earth. So according to how they live in this life, someone will be determined to be a righteous person who obeys God and who are holy. So if somebody repents at some point of his life and decide to follow Jesus and obey him and decide to live according to his words and live a holy life, then he will be determined to be a righteous person. So that's the purpose of this life. So if you think about it, if God told everybody there is heaven, and the purpose of this life is to choose all those people to become the citizen of that heaven, then who would in their right mind would not do their best, do whatever it takes to get into heaven? Who would want to fall into the lake of fire? So all the imposters and all the drunkards, just to get into the kingdom, they will correct their ways. And maybe some people might enjoy this life, do whatever they want to do, and enjoy all the wicked ways. And right at the end, just to get into the kingdom, if they know all the secrets of our kingdom, then at the end of his life, he would tell God, oh, I want to live for you. And I want to follow Jesus. And I'm going to live a righteous life. Right at the end. Then God has no choice but to get him into the kingdom. Then, how can he observe his life? And one of the purposes is he a loyal servant of himself for a long time? So the eternity is a long time. So he wants to see if somebody is a loyal servant who serves him with his life, which is pretty long time. So he wants to choose that kind of people. But if he told everybody how to get into kingdom and all the secrets, then they would enjoy all this life, and then right at the end they would make that decision. Then this life, which is the test, will not really work. So I believe that's the reason why in the Old Testament times, God hid the presence of the kingdom. So at that time, nobody knew there was a kingdom. They thought all the life on this earth, that's it. And when they died, they would return to the soil. That's what they believed. So why did he hid the presence of the kingdom in the Old Testament times? Because he wanted that test to work. And this New Testament times, he revealed the secret of the kingdom. So Christians believe there is eternity. But Jesus hid how to get into the kingdom with a parable. Why? Because he wanted to make that testing possible on this earth, so that all the wicked people and the imposters will be trimmed out. So I believe that's one of the reasons why he hid how to be born again with a parable. And also what I believe is that God wanted genuine people who loves God and serves him, not to just get into the kingdom, not to earn something. It's like a selfish ambition, right? So God doesn't people to pretend to love him and to work for him just to get into the kingdom. So if you think about it, the doctrines of these Protestant churches are conditioned so that those who follow Jesus, they don't follow Jesus to be saved. They decide to follow Jesus because they are thankful of the sacrifice of Jesus and because they love God. That's why they decide to follow Jesus and they become missionaries. So that is exactly why Jesus hid that secret with a parable. So when I think about it, all those who decide to follow Jesus, they are the true, genuine Christ followers. They did it not because they want to get into the kingdom, but they did it because of genuine love for Jesus. So I have this great respect for those people. And to tell you the truth, when I decided to follow Jesus, it's because I read a book called Heaven is So Real, and I began to believe that without following Jesus, you can't be saved. That's why I decided to follow Jesus. So if I didn't know that, I don't know if I could have made that decision to follow Jesus. Without knowing, that's the requirement to be saved. So what shall we do? So salvation became much easier. So when you know the secret of how to get into the kingdom, then it gets much easier. So God is releasing all the secrets in this end time, I believe, to acquire as many people as possible to get into the kingdom. So what shall we do? So even though we know that we are following Jesus, in order to get into the kingdom, what we can do is decide to genuinely love Jesus, even though we do that to get into the kingdom. and decide to really follow Jesus and fear God, even though we do that because we want to get into the kingdom. So doesn't matter we do that in order to get into the kingdom, we do it genuinely. So we truly love God and we truly obey Him and work for Him, then I believe God will take that kind of love and dedication and service for Him, even though we do it to get into the kingdom. So I think that's what we can do. So I wish that everyone who watches this video can make that decision to follow Jesus and genuinely love God and obey Him, to serve Him in His kingdom. I wish you blessings from the Lord.